If you told me 6 months ago I'd pour hundreds of hours into researching, texturing, and building a forest in Minecraft, I probably would have laughed, because why would I do that? But given the title of this video, clearly something happened. Despite how much I love nature, landscapes have never been the sole subject of my builds, and I think I can say that's the case for the majority. I mean, who is thinking about building a landscape when it literally comes free with your Xbox? However, with the rise of cinematic content and mods that allow you to see thousands of blocks away, I think more people in the Minecraft space are looking at the greater environment. The world painter guys were right, bro. This rocks. Unfortunately for me, this area of building is my weakest link. I was a professional builder, but I was also the interior person. I gazed at those custom landscapes through the paned glass like a scorned lover. Nowadays, I'm determined to learn how to build anything, and after finding myself in need of a forest for an extra secret project, I decided it was time to address this weak point and give landscapes a try. So today, we're going to be using a little ecology as our guide and Mother Nature as our muse, with the goal of building a forest so stunning and natural it feels like it's always been there. Strap on your boots, folks, this is gonna be a tough hike, but the view at the top will certainly be worth it. But before we can get into caring for an environment, let's talk about how we can care for ourselves. Did you know there's an entire microbiome on your face? I did, but I didn't know how easy it was to disrupt it. After years of relatively clear skin, this year I started experiencing a form of dermatitis I have never seen in my entire life. Now, I tried to take care of it myself because frankly, I don't like setting up appointments. I am not beating the Gen Z allegations of being bad with phone calls. But eventually it got to a point where I really just needed to see a professional. Suddenly, I remembered the last time that ZocDoc sponsored this channel, and I decided to use it to book my dermatology appointment. And honestly, it kind of rocked. It was such an easy experience that turned a task I was dreading into a few clicks, which is why I'm happy that ZocDoc is also sponsoring today's video. For those who don't know, ZocDoc is a free app/website that can help you find and book appointments with doctors local to your area. They have over 150,000 providers across all 50 states with a vast range of specialties from dermatologists to PCPs to dentists and so much more. ZocDoc is above all a tool, allowing you to search and compare availability, accepted healthcare plans, and patient reviews. You can also search for in-person visits or more immediate video call visits. Appointments made through ZocDoc can happen quickly, even within 24 to 72 hours of booking, or potentially the same day. Finding doctors can be stressful, I know, but thanks to ZocDoc, it can be a lot easier. So consider trying it today and use the link in the description below to finally book that appointment you've been putting off. And now back to the video. How do we even approach building a forest? Over the years, I've learned the quickest way to get good at building something in Minecraft is looking at how that thing is built and designed in our world. In past projects, I've looked at blueprints, studied different styles of architecture, and even the occasional dollhouse or two. But a forest doesn't have blueprints, at least not in the traditional sense. In my last video, we talked about the philosophy of building nature in Minecraft and digital environments in general. It's not a mandatory watch, but an important takeaway for this video is that nature builds forests, we don't. And if we want to capture a natural environment, we have to study its original architecture, or as a scientist might call it, ecology. The study of how life develops, interacts, grows, and decays. Which means we kind of have to pick a specific forest, because this is just too vague to research. The formation around a rainforest is going to be very different from the formation of a chaparral. Luckily, I've already got a forest in mind because lately I've been thinking a lot about the European Alps, which is also like mountains and there's like a few different kinds of forests around them, but that's okay. The forests around the Alps have these beautiful gradients from conifer to broadleaf trees, and something about their patchy, rocky nature has always felt cinematic to me. I just knew this was the landscape I wanted to capture. It only took a few minutes of research to understand that mountains, wind, and water play the most crucial role in shaping these forests. So let's start there. Or maybe not. I tried building mountains myself before quickly realizing I was burning up my computer and my brain. So in order to keep my focus on the details of the environment and the forest, I commissioned someone else for the topography of this project. Drumroll, please. Introducing Zhyrr, a landscape artist with over 9 years of experience in procedurally generated terrain. I actually have been a fan of Zhyrr's work for a while, but this project gave me an excuse to reach out and collaborate. When people say procedurally generated terrain, I think there's some idea that it goes a little something like this. Computer, generate me a mountain. But it's a lot more complicated than that. In fact, when working with Zhyrr, he noted how he took watershed into consideration alongside a lot of other environmental factors. Procedural generation is usually dictated by nodes of human logic and understanding of the environment. It's definitely something I want to learn, but for now, we're gonna let Zhyrr cook while we get a jumpstart on the trees. We've got a handful of species to build that will aid the creation of our mountainside gradients. I cobbled together this list with a bit of research and help from a friend. Not all of them are alpine as in European alpine, as I kind of got into researching high elevation climates in general, but anyways, we'll be building these with a degree of height accuracy. It's funny, because despite how much I love research and precision, I've never thought about trying to translate tree scale into Minecraft. It seems like a generally accepted thing to make trees a bit bigger. However, representing giant mountains is already difficult with Minecraft's height limit, and an oversized tree can make that a lot worse. I might be speaking from personal experience here. The first species I tackled was the Norwegian spruce. I got a bit ahead of myself since building the trunks was so easy. I just kept going and adding on different growth stages and heights, but then as I got to the actual needles, I realized my mistake. In order to really control the shape, especially those droopy branches, I did all of them by hand, and suddenly 30 trunks in 1 hour became 30 trees in 7 hours. Right. Maybe I should get help. As a building content creator, collaboration feels really weird. I think a lot of us get nervous because, well, what if our audience thinks less of us because we had help? But I also think that mindset is kinda dumb. Collaboration is an important part of art, and especially when it comes to trees, nothing creates more ecological diversity than trees from the minds of other people. I reached out to some builders with a tree species, and some got back contributing either a single tree or multiple. I just want to give a huge thank you to these builders, and I'll leave their links below. Me, however, I still have a lot to go. Our next species is the white pine. No, not that one, this one. White pine isn't a European alpine tree, but it is common in the high elevation environments near me. Alongside that, these trees are going to play an important role in this build as a slightly smaller conifer with a lot of gut to grow wherever it pleases. Next, we're doing our first broadleaf trees, in this case the European beech. These felt way more up my alley in terms of how I know how to build trees, but I did take some observational lessons from my friend Dutch and hollowed out the interior leaves a bit more. It then occurred to me that, well, if these trees are here, we're gonna have a lot of tree rubbish. Things like fallen logs and stumps. Since I was already making little bits and bobs, I also went ahead and made some bushes and rocks too. Moving on, you might have noticed that silver birch is on this list, and luckily I made about 20 silver birch trees earlier this year for my Kiki's delivery service project. There is one issue though. If we're being realistic about the scale, these are technically gigantic. Only a fraction of them survived the trimming process, but this was still way easier than building them from scratch. Okay, I want to make more conifers. Time for one of my favorite trees, the larches. Building in the confines of vanilla blocks always reminds me of what I yearn for in Minecraft's block selection. Luckily, I'm starting to think I have a guardian angel. For years, my answer to, if you could add any block to Minecraft, what would it be, was always a white wood. Then we got pale oak. After that, it became green slabs and stairs, and then Mojang announced the next drop. And before I could even open my mouth and ask for colored leaves, well, we got that too. My only regret is that I couldn't have delayed this project to play around with those beautiful blocks. Oh, shelf mushroom, how I yearn for you. If I do have a guardian angel and they happen to be listening, I just want to say, you want to add quartz walls so bad. Ooh. Anyways, do you guys think this is enough trees? Please say yes. It's kind of hard to show them all while building, so I don't know, just watch this. Are up on my Patreon as a pack, but I'm also releasing the Guest Grove pack for free, which features all of the guest-made trees and a few of my own as well. But don't run away just yet, because Zhyrr is done with the base and it's time for us to see what he's made. This little world of its own, I've decided to name Beau's Basin. Even without the forest I envisioned, it's truly a work of art itself. When I approached Zhyrr, I did give a few specific requirements and he hit all of them perfectly. In truth, there's some inaccuracy here per my request. Lakes in these areas are typically formed through glacier activity. The mountains around them tend to show an entrance or at least an exit for said glacier. but Beau's Basin is a true stadium, slightly more reminiscent of a dormant volcano or a crater. If you want to know the secret behind that design choice, you'll have to wait a bit. For now, we have 9 million square blocks of space and a lot of work to do. Let's start with the shoreline. In real life, all of the water in this basin would be pooling towards the center, dragging along sediment, creating what's sometimes called a cantina effect. Simply put, at these higher spots, the soil is thin and eroded. In the center, it's maybe a bit more stable for growing, and at the bottom, it's an icky, muddy mess. I wanted this build to show that, so I swapped the sand for mud and clay, and we're going to... What are you doing? Spiky rock? But I'm doing a scientific explanation. You can't just do that. But spiky rock. Okay, I mean, you know what? Sure, spiky rock. While the spikes might be a bit inaccurate, I do want to note the swap here from dark rocks to lighter ones. In all of the reference photos I gathered for this project, I noticed that most of them had lighter rocks. After a bit of research, I learned that this is more or less because high quartz content is more frequent at high altitudes. After that, I kept smoothing out the shoreline in the wet areas and roughing up the drier ones. We're gonna have a lot of greenery on this bank as it's a little swampy. By now, you might have noticed the grass looks a bit different, and that's because I got so invested in the small details of this project, I made a resource pack. I'll try to point out the changes as we go. In this case, the grass and bushes have been modified to represent a family of species known as sedge grass. Sedges grow in a very round shape, which gives them aerodynamic protection against strong winds. Moss and sedges are the absolute goats of this environment and will be featured all over. Slowly, I moved towards the cliffside, giving some attention to the roughness and the sediment-like layers it came with. Towards the bottom, I also built rocky fractures, trying to reflect the flakiness of the layers. Now, one thing about this build, there's a lot of it, and it's easy for it to get monotonous. So let's create some points of interest. Starting with this low shoreline, we're gonna make it extra messy. The rocks are really split, greenery has taken over, and it's also eating itself a bit. This was another area where the reality of time for this project really hit me. I'm using words like mess and chaos frequently, but so much of this is deliberate and based on my observations of the environment and the reading that I've done. This small section took 4 hours. Further down the shoreline, we have this dry spot, too rocky for water to matter. I definitely could have sped up the construction of some of these areas with the right tools and the right knowledge of how to use them. But that was also part of my learning with this project. After dozens and dozens of hours, I still didn't feel great about the shoreline, but also you're kind of here to watch a forest, I think, so maybe we should get to that. We'll just start... Oh, right, there's a lot of land here, isn't there? Looking at this whole thing is incredibly overwhelming, so let's use the concept of ecological succession to break this down. Ecological succession is the process of an environment developing into a stable climax community. And not all of this land will find itself in the same community. When environments develop, so many little factors can decide its end goal. If we mix what we know just about the soil and elevation, we're going to get this mosaic of tiny little spots. On the outside, we'll have shrubby fields and sparse tree lines, blending into conifer forests and meadows. In the center, we might find huddled patches of broadleaf trees and endless flowers. And lastly, as we reach the high cliffs, things might be a bit up in the air, literally, depending on exposure. I won't be following this plan to a T, but it was just what I needed to break things down and get started. Speaking of, we have to pick a spot. Here. This little cliff will be the first victim of our forestry project. I'm interpreting the water flow situation as the water is missing the cliff sides a bit, so I'm treating this area as rocky and gravelly. Gravelly? Whatever. It's the perfect condition for white pines, shrubs, and heather. Oh wait, but Minecraft doesn't have heather. At least, not yet. Introducing my pink and red tulip retextures. Each one has about 6 variants to make the fields feel very diverse and patchy. I didn't want to make the resource pack like super mandatory for this build, so when it came to the retexturing, I tried to keep colors relatively similar to the original flower. Anyways, now this cliff can be done up. I didn't originally plan to retexture the ferns or this, but I think I just got addicted to adding variants in this resource pack because of how much it improved the overall natural feel of this world. With the completion of that small area, the confidence was starting to kick in. Okay, yeah, maybe I could do this. Let's try the next zone. This space is supposed to be similar to the last, but less flowery. I still consider myself new to Axiom. In fact, Shovel and I called while he built his tree, and it was only then that I learned how Axiom blueprints even work. And dude, it's been a lifesaver. The best part about blueprints is how they integrate into the stamp tool, which is an Axiom tool that basically allows you to paint with blueprints and schematics. It also has additional settings around rotation and density. I got it mostly set up, but I was still struggling with accuracy. Sometimes I'd place a tree without it connecting to the ground, or I'd have floating ferns, but that's okay, we all gotta start somewhere. Anytime I got stuck or frustrated during this project, I tried to pivot to another area just to keep the flow going. And in this case, I went back to the cliff sides to work on a more fruitful meadow. Another retexture of mine for this project is lilacs to lupins. I'm not exactly a favorite flower person, but I love cone shapes in nature. You might have figured that out given this entire build, but lupins, foxgloves, lilacs, lavender, I adore them all. Retexturing these flowers was a bit difficult because lupins have these star-like leaves, and I struggled with the color, but these mixed in with some grass and some bushes just make for a beautiful sight, especially in the evening when the aurora is out. Okay, I had my fun. Back to the forest, I guess. My main worry at this point was the trees. I knew what trees I wanted and where, but planting them was a whole other beast. I've talked about this in a different video, but tree spacing is so hard to do in Minecraft, especially if we're trying to be accurate to an environment. To be fair, this isn't just a Minecraft issue. Most digital environments are like caricatures, playing around with scales and highlighting certain features to give a vibe rather than fact. There's usually technical reasons for this. For starters, in Minecraft, if we space these trees in an accurate way, it would look really dense. And because light doesn't permeate Minecraft leaves the same way it does in real life, it would be really, really dark. It took a headache, but eventually I found a density I thought I was satisfied with and started painting in the trees. And before I knew it, I was done. I finished filling the whole basin, and it sucked. But why do I hate it? And what do I even do about it? How about nothing? Let's go work on something else. I do like this area of broadleaf trees at least, so let's work on the forest floor. The undergrowth of a forest is a challenge not many builders are willing to take on, and I get why. It's not seen from an aerial point of view, and well, it's really hard. When people speak of nature's chaos, this is really the spot I think of. Growing up in a mixed temperate forest myself, I know all too well the fallen branches, the leaves, the eternal smell of decay mixed with the freshest air you can find. Capturing this in Minecraft is incredibly difficult. There's only so many small pieces you can cobble together, and the lack of slanted lines can make the mess feel too perfect. But I was still trying to do what I could while ignoring the looming problem I created beyond this canopy. Working on this gave me some time to reflect on why I didn't like the trees. Especially under here, the spacing just felt too perfect, too even. It didn't feel natural. After barely chipping away at that forest floor, I came to the tough decision to go back on all of my trees. So, what's the plan? If you're new here, then let me also introduce myself as a painter. I actually picked up painting around the same time I started professionally building, and I do think they've gone hand in hand in my brain. There's one rule of painting that has always stuck with me. Use the largest brush possible. What this typically means is don't waste your time using small brushes when larger brushes can do the same thing. This is a rule I try to apply to Minecraft building when I can. It's honestly the reason I fell in love with Axiom in the first place, because I could bring my painting philosophy into Minecraft. I could spend less time making boxes and more time doing the tiny details that are signature to me. This rule also tends to create a depth of field effect. The areas you detail by hand become the natural focal point. Unfortunately, despite how wonderful this all sounds, this philosophy isn't compatible with this situation. The goal with this environment is not to treat it like a background. These can't be random trees dabbled behind a detailed subject. This is the detailed subject. So for that reason, I'm going to try placing them by hand. I wasn't fully committed to this idea yet, so I chose this area to test run. What I liked about this method is I could control the height of each tree, creating sections of taller trees surrounded by smaller ones still on the path to growth. I could also be mindful about where these trees might flourish, or where the ground might be too rocky for them to take root. Last, as I approached the mountainside, I could reduce the frequency of the trees, making them sparser and smaller. And it's perfect. Crap, I'm gonna have to do this everywhere, aren't I? Look, I might be digging myself a hole here, but how else do you find buried treasure? Before I dedicated my life to placing trees, I decided to touch grass for a bit, although digitally, and focus on creating more of those spots. One thing I want to show in this environment is hints of slow erosion. maybe alluding to a time when the lake was higher and the snow reached further. I built a lot of these rocky patches and strips that maybe fill up with water when the temperature is warmer. The title says forest, but I'm sure you've long realized this is about much more than an area with trees. It's the entire landscape that hugs it, shapes it, and makes it what it is. Even small glades can get carved out in a forest by becoming a favorite spot for animal grazing. This little glade has a few more retextures I want to point out. The orange tulips have been transformed into mountain arnicas, and while the azure blues and daisies remain intact, I gave them some more variants to reflect their alpine colors. Also the wildflowers, just because. Still on my detail spree, I spent another day giving care to the cliffside. It was at this moment that I really started to feel the groove and my confidence was stable. Like an environment, the concept for this video changed and evolved a lot. My original plan was to simulate ecological succession across this entire basin, building each stage and explaining it with science. But time-wise, that just wasn't feasible. I do want to give a shout out to AnEcologistPlays and Organick for their advice during this project. Organick is someone I've known for years, but AnEcologistPlays is a professor of ecology who gave me a lot of advice on this video and even wrote a segment that I didn't get to finish the visuals for. But they're both so wonderful, so if you like gaming and looking at it through an educational lens, I highly recommend both of these channels. But for now, we have to finish placing trees. At last, the trees are in place and we can focus on the ground. I started by refining my rock brush, so I could create more of those dry, rocky strips. As I moved around the lake and more towards the back, I remembered this little pocket in the corner here. This is where I planned a different heather field. Something sparse, in the dry soil the water is ignoring on its sprint to the center. Let's see what we can do. This isn't exactly what I envisioned, but we'll have more opportunities to try our hand at this type of area again. Moving on to more patches of broadleaf and messy meadows, I'm mixing in my rocks and lots of different flowers. I think this area takes the prize for being the most diverse in color. A few more retextures here. Cornflowers and alliums have gotten some alpine variants, and torch flowers have been transformed into an alpine flower known as the Indian red paintbrush. As I slowly worked my way under the canopy, I tried again to represent the broadleaf floor, this time finding much more success. The oddest part about this project was definitely the time, because I could work on it for 6 hours straight and still feel like I got absolutely nothing done. I'm not much of a mega builder, I really respect them, but I've always preferred my builds to be like small doodles, sketches, things that are comforting to approach. This had the comforting quality, but it was not small. Nature is really easy to underestimate. Building it always takes longer than expected. But I am happy to say, on top of the collaborations for this project, I had a lot of people hang out with me and support me during the hours I spent working on it.
Trouble, stay away from my door. Trouble, stay away from my door. Trouble, come back, don't come around no more. Trouble, stay away from my door.
As I arrived at the west half of the basin, I decided these trees were chopped metaphorically, and they needed to be chopped literally. This time round, there wasn't any sweat over this decision. I had the reassurance of my past to back up that, yeah, sometimes it's good to do a do-over. Despite my exhaustion with all of this, I kept a standard, refusing to go lower and always aiming higher. I keep mentioning the hardest parts of this project, but if there was any one thing I had to pin as the challenge, it was sourcing the motivation to keep going. I mean, what drives a person to build a forest like this? If my motivation was driven by a desire to get better at building nature, I could have done a smaller map, or I could have called it quits 100 hours ago. Yet here I am, still chipping away. You might earnestly think it's for the clickbait. I say a big number, try to tackle the impossible, and you show up. That's YouTube, right? And I mean, I guess that's kind of part of it, entirely by accident. But I'm gonna be real with you guys, I don't think this work is going to pay off. At least, not like that. So maybe it's time to talk about the greater journey this build is a mere chapter of. the secret behind the mountains, and the identity of Bo. Whether you're a casual viewer or a die-hard community member, I think it's time we all agree that Minecraft as a medium has some insane cinematic potential. The past 3 years especially have shown that this really is a sandbox. You don't need millions of dollars of funding to create a piece of storytelling art. People right now are building entire worlds, forming entire civilizations, and creating entire movies and series, and they're doing it in their house. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to join in. To create something that has people going, I can't believe this was done in Minecraft. I can pinpoint the exact moment I decided I was going to build this forest myself. I was watching the director's commentary for the 2016 Robert Eggers film The Witch, and he said this.
The clapboards that sheathe the house, the siding, no one in Canada knew how to make those correctly. So we had to find a guy in Massachusetts who knows how to hand rive oak clapboards, and we had to have them shipped up.
There are a lot of barriers to creating visual cinematic art in person and in animation. The very film Eggers is commenting on was known for its fantastic execution on its small budget of $4 million. And while I love movies shot in these mediums, I also love the accessibility that Minecraft offers. I can have intense attention to detail if I accept that it's shot in a block game. I have access to a world I can shape right now. I just need myself and the willingness to put in the time to make it. The fact that this basin is a set is something I never intended to bring up, but recently I've come to understand that motivation is never separate from the outcome. The fact that I was still working on this project by this point is only because of a dream to one day transport you all somewhere else, to create a video that would hopefully be like none before. It was that dream alone that drove me to study ecology, to spend months crashing out over trees and giving myself headache after headache. And don't get me wrong, it didn't feel anywhere near worth it until recently. A few weeks ago, in my most zombified state, I was working on these mudflats thinking of all the things I still had left to do, and then I shared a screenshot online and amongst friends, and what actually got me was the reaction. Multiple people told me, "Oh, I recognize that place," and I said, "Huh? What do you mean? Because this is Bo's Basin, it's fictional, it doesn't exist." But still, people started listing real places. Glacier lakes, crater lakes, various spots in the Alps, Colorado, I guess. Everyone collectively agreed that it was familiar, meaning that I had achieved exactly what I set out to do. What I couldn't do when I started this project. Often on this channel, I am told that I'm doing too much. But moments like these are the most vindicating. Lately, I've been seeing the birth of a society where passion is deemed as cringe, and I refuse to participate in it. If you have something that you really want to do, I recommend starting. If you don't think you have enough time or skill, waiting will certainly not grant you more. And if you need inspiration or motivation, I recommend looking outside. Nature is the ultimate example of gradual change. All of the small moments we take for granted, adding up to something monumental. Although, sometimes a bit of before and after comparison helps too.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who gets drunk next to you. And if I haver, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who's havering to you. But I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more to be the man who walked 1,000 miles to fall down at your door.
Fun fact, this forest still isn't done, actually. I'll probably be working on it for a few more months as I create foxholes, bio-rubbish, and clean up all the mistakes I made while learning how to clean up my other mistakes. I'm putting the beta version of this map on Patreon for free, alongside the resource pack and the shader settings I used throughout this video. If you do use it as a background, or if you add more to it yourself, can you use the tag #BosBasin so I can see everything you've made? Mostly because I'm a nerd who just really likes Minecraft builds. Last, thank you to my Patreon members. I've been so busy balancing this project while also working on what is officially a Mojang awarded SMP, and you guys have been nothing but patient, so thank you. As per usual, always remember, guys, to take care of yourself, the people around you, and the spaces you occupy.